Today, we're speaking with the experts from CattleFax about the challenges facing cattlemen and looking at some solutions that you may want to implement in your own operation. Joining me today is Randy Block, Chief Executive Officer of CattleFax.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Randy.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. Mike Miller is the Chief Operating Officer of CattleFax. We've got Brett Stuart, the Global Market Specialist, also with CattleFax. And, of course, Dr. Tom Field of National Cattlemen's Beef Association, also a consultant with CattleFax.
Thanks, Kevin.
Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Our pleasure.
I'd like to start with you quickly, Mike, and tell us just a little bit about CattleFax itself and some of the services you provide your producer members.
Sure, Kevin. We are a 40-year-old industry organization that serves the beef industry and cattlemen all over the United States. Our primary focus on an ongoing basis is to provide our members critical information, research, and analysis to help them make better and more informed decisions. We employ a team of expert analysts and researchers in making that leap towards providing information and turning information into real tools for our members. We've grown since our inception in 1968 to today, where we serve about 5,000 members across the United States. So on our information platforms, we actually provide our information in several different ways. We've got a number of daily and weekly and even monthly reports that we provide, and of course our flagship product is our weekly update that we provide every Friday to our members. So we try to provide all of our members critical information that helps them be better at what they do every day.
That's great stuff. Randy, you've been a longtime student of this industry. Tell us about some of the key changes that you've seen over the last couple of years that have really impacted the beef cattle industry.
Well, there's a lot of them, Kevin, but I tell you, several of the most important ones have been these increasing costs.
Sure.
Costs have increased substantially for cow-calf operators in the industry. They've increased over $100 a head here in the last 3 or 4 years. Corn prices have nearly tripled. We've gone from $2.50 corn to recently corn trading on top of $7 a bushel. So all of those kind of things have had a tremendous impact on the industry and have really diminished the profitability for producers in all segments of the industry. The dollar has continued to decline in value, so we've seen record exports of a number of our goods, commodities throughout the industry. Fuel prices have increased significantly. So producers have really been forced to take a hard look at their business and say, what can I do different to prosper in this environment?
That's a great point. And Tom, let's talk a little bit about cost of production, especially for the cow-calf producers.
Well, Kevin, if the first part of this decade was really about how high the prices were, the last half's been about how high the price of inputs has been. I don't think any of us saw the price of oil coming at inflation over a decade of about 290% what we're paying today. Corn, fertilizer, hay, pasture land, and all of that balanced against a 15% increase in the value of a 550-pound calf. So that's a big challenge, and what that's translated to is for the average producer about a $75 increase in a per cow cost of production over the last 4 years. We're now chasing that $450 mark awfully hard. And so we've got to do a lot of belt tightening, as Randy said, to make this industry function at the cow-calf level. When you take all the data, and a lot of great work has been done trying to track how we measure and understand profitability in this industry, what's really intriguing is as a industry historically, we've loved production. It's driven really the income side of our business. But the reality is that about 80% of the variation we see in profitability between farms is really tied to cost of production. And at the end of the day, when you take all of that to town, you've really got to pay attention to the cost side of this business, and in particular to the cost of feed. We see about 60% of the total cost of production tied directly or indirectly to the cost of feeding those animals.
Well, so let's chase that a minute. What can producers do specifically to manage their cost of production?
Well, there's a couple of things, and a lot of it begins with really understanding where you are. You can't have a game plan without knowing where you are in the game, and the first thing is really is an aggressive move, and I think a proactive move, and that's tie that calf to the cow, that calf's data to the cow, so that if in fact she's not doing a good job with that calf, she is the first to be considered for being culled from the herd. And then tie both those animals to the ranch so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that exist in terms of a source and age verification. At that point in time, then you want to measure what's your real cost of production. On a wean calf basis is really ideal in my opinion. There's a whole series of things that we can do to take a look at measuring that cost in enterprises inside the unit. For example, what's it cost to get a heifer pregnant for the first time, and then also understanding what's her success rate that second time and measuring those differences. Understanding everything that we can about our pastures, understanding the quality and the productivity of those pastures, because we're going to have to depend more on raised forage as opposed to harvested feeds. And then I think it's really critical as we look at those depreciable assets, which are equipment by and large, that we no longer look at our equipment as a fleet, but we look piece by piece and really understand the cost of maintaining, repairing, and operating each piece of equipment, and understanding where the break even is when it's time to let that truck go and no longer try to keep it in the fleet because it's just costing us too much to operate.
Those are some great tips. You've seen a lot of operations. What are some of the high return producers doing differently than those producers that may not be generating as much profitability?
You know, thanks to the great work of people at CattleFax and at the land-grant universities across the country, we have a pretty good understanding of the differences between profitable and unprofitable enterprises. And what we find is that those profitable operators, day in and day out, just do the best job of waging war on cost. They have the lowest break-evens because they manage their debt, they manage their operating costs, and they simply find those corners to cut at the right times. But they never cut their throat in the process. They have the highest productivity by and large because they do a great job with reproductive management. They wean more pounds per cow exposed. That really helps them work in this whole game. And the last thing they do is they really understand where they're at in the business. And at the end of the day, they produce it for less, they produce a little more of it, and they're always trying to find that place to capture a little more value.
That's some great insight.